Okay, good evening everybody. Thank you for coming. I would like to discuss the topic, the mitzvah of Shnayim Mikrah Targum, the mitzvah of learning the parsha Shavua on a weekly basis, Shnayim Mikrah Targum. And let's see if we can get through it. Listed on the flyer a number of bullet points. Let's see if we can get through them. The Gemara in Brachos on Daf Ches Amud Aleph, the very last line in Amud Aleph says, Amar Avhuna, Amar Bar Yehuda, Amar Rabbi Ami. La'olam yashlam adam pash Yosef v'matzibur shnayim mikra targum. One should always see to it, to do this, to be mashlim, to complete the parsha, and to learn through all the parashos, im hatzibur, together with the tzibur, which will be defined as Hashem, shnayim mikra v'echa targum. 2 times the pasuk, the mikra itself, the pasuk, and 1 time the targum. Va'afilu ataros v'divon. The pasuk says even ataros v'divon. That refers to their psukim in Parshas Matos, when the Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven were asking to be able to stay over on the Ever HaYarden, not to have to go to the other side. They mentioned the names of certain cities that were there, which they were found desirable, including Ataros v'Divon. And Rashi says there's no targum on that, but nevertheless, you still have to do that pasuk 3 times, even if there's no targum. Tosafos has a comment that we do have a certain type of targum. Why not mention, Reuven, Shimon? Okay. In any case, every pasuk in the Torah, regardless of whether or not there is a targum, has to be learned through 3 times. And if there's a targum, with the targum. If there's no targum, if it's a pasuk like just Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, so you just say 3 times Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. Now, and the Gemara goes on and says, Shekala mashlim parshiyosim atzibur. Whoever does this, whoever's mashlim is parshim with the tzibur, marichin lo yamu v'shnosav. He will merit arichas yamim v'shanim, long life, long days, and the days that are filled. And the Madonna Yomtiv points out on the rush there that part of the idea of arichas yamim is the idea that it's also chayim tovim, not just longevity, not just long days, but good days, chayim tovim. Now, although the lashon of the Gemara almost implies like it's a good thing to do, li'olam yashlam, like it's a recommendation, a suggestion, not necessarily an absolute chiyuv, that one might get that impression from the lashon of the Gemara. But indeed, but in fact, that is not how it is. The Rishonim understand it. Of the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch bring it down as an absolute chiyuv, the lashon of the Shulchan Aruch, which is like the lashon of the Rambam, afal pisha adam shomea kol Torah kula kol Shabbos b'tzibur. All, even though a person has the Torah lane, the entire Torah lane, each on a weekly basis on Shabbos, chayav likros la'atzmo. He has to read it for himself. B'chol shavua, every week, parshas those shavua, the parsha that week, Shnayim Mikrah targum, afilu ataros v'divon. So it says chayav. The person is obligated to do it. Rabbi and Tshuva points out in the 5th chelik of Arachayim of Birkas Moshe. Moshe says this even applies to people who are B'nai Torah, Talmidei Chachamim, who are Yoshim, they're sitting and learning all day. They're learning all the time. But they should say, look, I'm learning Shas and Poskim and, delving into whatever it may be. That's great, but Afal Pikein, you have to make time for this as well. You have to make time for Shnayim, Mikrah, Ve'echa Targum. Now, there's a different discussion about exactly what the idea was. The Lashonos of some of the Kadmonim, the Beis Yosef, and the Levush indicate that a person should be rogel b'Torah. A person should be accustomed to familiar with the Torah uvemashat tzibur karim. Shelo yeh davar zarlo. It shouldn't be something that he shouldn't listen to the laning and find it it's unfamiliar territory. He should be well familiar, not just relying on having heard it last year or the previous years, but go through it. And just very quickly mention that the Balei Musar say that when a person does learn the parsha every year, he should try to make some progress, try to advance in terms of his understanding, his depth, his appreciation. I think one of the Balei Musar speaks about is Rabbi Zichron in one place says that a person shouldn't when he's whatever 50 years old, he shouldn't be picturing Avram Avinu and Sarah and Hagar the way he got first grasped it from his first grade Mora or Rabbi or whatever explained it to him. He should try to get a little bit beyond that, and each year try to get further more. And it's inevitable that if a person tries, if you apply yourself, you put your mind to it. It's like all Torah, but you put your mind to it. There are always new things. I mean, people discover, quote unquote, discover things in psukim that were like under their eyes, under their nose for many years, but it just all of a sudden new things open up. Besides that, any base medrash b'chish, that way they're all learning. Torah Shabbat as well. You learn something over again, and it always opens up to more and more things. Okay, but the idea is so that you should be rogel with the Torah. Now the Shulchan says that Avada, this must have been part of Moshe Rabbeinu's takana when Moshe Rabbeinu was masaking that we that there should be Kriyas HaTorah Shabbos morning B'tzibur. So part of that was also that the Yachid should review the parsha for himself. This is what the Shulchan says. Now, why 3 times? So they bring a Raivan. The Raivan says, Madonna Yontif brings it, that it's Keneged Shnayim HaKorim Ve'echad Metargim. The 2 Korim and the one who's Metargim. So the Madonna Yontif explains it to me, the Shnayim HaKorim means the Shliach Tzibur and the Korei, who would be standing up by the bima, by the shulchan, as well as the Metargim. We know that you used to have a Metargim who would give a running commentary on it. So that's what he says the 3 times. So the Shulchan suggests, based on the Gemara in Sota, Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, where it says that Klolos upratos nemru b'Sinai, the Klolos upratos of the Torah, where the mitzvahs of the Torah were taught to us in Har Sinai, v'nishnu, they were repeated ba'oel moed, v'nishtalshu, and then a 3rd time ba'arvos moav. So connected like the 3 times that the Torah was transmitted as a whole, we have a mitzvah to lane 3 times, but instead of just doing the pasuk 3 times, when there is targum, which is the vast majority of times, they were masaking the mitzvah to do it with a targum, so that a person should understand what he's saying, especially with the targum. And hopefully later we'll talk about if it's davka the targum, but the specific mitzvah is targum, meaning, let's say targum unkelis, which we know is given initially in Har Sinai. The Lashon Aramis, the Torah was translated back in Har Sinai into Aramis, which is Karov Lashon HaKodesh, as the Aruch HaShulchan. And the Gemara Megillah tells us, Daf Gimel, that it was originally given by Sinai and it was forgotten, and Unkelos reinstated. Unkelos brought it back to us. So this is extremely important. It's an extremely high madrega. The Targum Unkelos is not just an explanation of interpretation of the Torah, but it traces itself back to Har Sinai. You can't get better than that. So that was the mitzvah to do it that way. Now, the idea that it says, Marich lo yamu v'shnosav, just want to share with you one verse for the Rav Elazar Moshe Horowitz, who has Chedushim in the back of certain Mesechtas and Shas. It's a Gvaldik Gagon that I think was called the Pitzker of. He says like this, that that the idea, part of the idea of doing Shnayim Mikrah v'Targum, so that person should be familiar with the parashas, like we said. Memela, if he's called up for an aliyah, he'll be able to take her, because it used to be that the one who was called up for the aliyah would lane himself. In some kehilas, in some parts of Kollel, so it's still done that way, at least to whoever can. But we don't do it in our B'nai Ashkenaz. We don't do it that way. But it used to be whoever got the aliyah would lane his aliyah. So he had to be familiar with it to lane it. Otherwise, he may have to turn down the aliyah. Now it says if a person turns down an aliyah, if they call him up to the Torah, he doesn't go. It says mekatzrin yamav, chas v'shalom, it causes kitzur yamim. So it says, so Zak the Reim Harwitz. So Memela, they're telling, the Chazal are telling us, Moshe Rabbeinu telling us, go over the parasha, make sure you're familiar with it. This way, if you get an aliyah, you'll be able to accept the aliyah, and you'll avoid the klala of being mekatzer yama for turning down the aliyah. Memela, it's marichlo yama shas. Memela, you'll have a richos yama. You won't suffer from the kitzur yama of the person who has to turn down an aliyah. One quick story, they say when, a number of years back, when Rabbi Yashav Zichron Levracha, when he was quite advanced in age, he was having some heart issues. In fact, eventually he had some very delicate heart surgery. they flew in a surgeon from America. Apparently, it was difficult to find a person who was qualified to do the surgery that he needed, the type of procedure that he needed, the heart procedure, and A, qualified, and B, willing to do it on a person of such an advanced age. And they flew in a surgeon from the United States who was willing to do it, and did it, in Baruch Hashem, successfully. But anyway, sometime prior to that surgery, he once was hospitalized, and he was unconscious for a couple of days, and it towards the end of the week and over Shabbos, he was not in a state of consciousness, and as soon as he came to, I think on Sunday, towards the beginning of the week, and shortly after, he asked for a chumash. He said he wasn't mashlim, he didn't finish the parsha. He used to do the parsha, break up the parsha for each day of the week. Maybe we'll talk about it also later, Bez Hashem. And he didn't get to finish it because he wasn't able to. He wasn't conscious at the end of the week. So he asked for a chumash. They should finish the parsha. So even though he was weak and he finished the parsha, then whoever's with him sees that he's already going to the next parsha, which was that week's parsha. So whoever was the shamish or whoever's with him. He said, Rabbi, maybe, he said, okay, you finished. I understand you want to finish parsha because you're behind. You finished. So now maybe you should take it easy. Maybe you shouldn't do this now. So he said, no, there's time. You have time, which is the beginning of the week. You have time for this parsha. So he said, no, Adarabba. It says, whoever does Shnayim Mikrah v'Chatargum, Marichel lo yamo v'shnosav. If anything, and now I need the schus. Look what just happened. I need all the schusim I can for a Arichas. Now, of course, we know, and this should be stressed anyway. The Gemara tells us Marichel Yom Shos. If it doesn't mean that a person should be mechav, that okay, I'm going to do it. It's added motivation, added impetus. It said it shows the chashivas of it. It's not the reason what you're not supposed to do it because Marichel Yom Shos. Yeah, I'm going to do it. You're supposed to do it because this is a mitzvah that we have to do. A mitzvah in Shulchan Aruch, a mitzvah in the Gemara, etc. But then Rabbi Yashav, of course, Mustafa just used that as maybe a little bit tongue in cheek, but also to as an excuse that his Gabbai shouldn't insist on taking away the chumash and let him do it. Okay, moving on now. So it says imat tzibur. One more thing before it says there's a famous remez at the beginning of Parsha Shmos. You may have all heard this, but I want to tell you two remezim. One you probably heard, one you might not have. The first two words in the Ve'ela Shmos, it says Ve'ela Shmos B'nei Yisrael Ve'ela Shmos. So there's a famous remez. V'chayav, the Vav Aleph Lamed Hey, Ve'ela and Shmos. Shmos, we know that's easy. Shmos is Shnayim Mikrah v'Chatargum, right there. But Ve'ela, V'chayav Adam Likros HaParsha, Vav Aleph Lamed Hey, Ve'ela, V'chayav Adam Likros HaParsha, Shnayim Mikrah v'Chatargum. That's remez number one. Then the Balaturim is more elaborate on the words Ve'ela Shmos B'nei Yisrael as follows: Ve'im Adam Lomed HaParsha Shnayim Mikrah v'Chatargum. Then we're up to B'nai. B'kol No'im Yashir. He sings it in a pleasant voice. We're up to Yisrael. Yichya Shanim Rabim Aruchim La'olam. As I state in Balatur. Okay. Now let's go to the Halacha. So it says Imat Tzibur. A person has to do Yashin Parsha of Imat Tzibur. What does it mean Imat Tzibur? So when can you start? So the Shulchan Aruch says, this is in Siman Reish Pei Hey, Sif Gimel Miyom Rishon Ve'elach. Chashiv Imat Tzibur. From Sunday on, it's called Imat Tzibur. The Mishnah Berurah explains, well, that's because on Shabbos, the day before, at Mincha, we began laning the next parsha. If it was Parshas Ve'era last week, so we started at Mincha time laning Bo. So starting Sunday is Imat Tzibur. Oh, it's like the Mishnah Berurah. So it doesn't really mean Sunday. Sunday's Lav Davka. It means already Shabbos afternoon. Once they're laning Bo, says the Mishnah Berurah, you could do it from then. And he's medayik that from a number of Rishonim, from Tosfos and the Rosh. And he brings some places it says Mefurish, and that's how the Mishnah Berurah paskins. He brings one of the Rishonim, the Kollel, I think, says not like that, but the Mishnah Berurah says that Rov Rishonim hold that you could begin already Shabbos afternoon when they're laying the parsha at Mincha. You could already begin that upcoming parsha. Now there are those that are chalik with Mishnah Berurah, those that learn different Rishonim, but as I state in Mishnah Berurah. Now there are some people, like I mentioned before, there are those people that would divide it up. Or that do divide it up and do a chelik of the parsha every day of the week. How do you divide it? So if there's a samach or a pei indicating the end of what the Torah calls a parsha. We refer to parsha sometimes as the sedra, but we know that a parsha means a section in the Chumash which ends with a break until the next session starts. Sometimes the break is till the end of the line and it continues to the next line, so that's called a parsha psucha, simply, and you'll have a pei. You'll see a pei in your Chumash. Sometimes there's a samach, a stuma, indicating that the next parsha begins on the same line. But those are the best places to stop. It doesn't always work. There's some parshas, take a look at Parshas Balak, for example. There's no pei samach until the very, very end, until the maftir, basically. And I know there are other places like that where there are long gaps or almost an entire parsha with no pei samach. So then it says you break it up in a place that seems to be appropriate. Well, you might say, well, what about the aliyahs? Do an aliyah a day. So it's interesting that the Aruch HaShulchan says, no, that's nothing. Those aliyahs, they have no meaning, no significance to that. But a number of Gedolim have said that, yeah, you could do that. You could use the aliyahs as break it up by the aliyahs. It's brought that the Chazon Ish, it's brought for Levin Agon, used to break it up over the days of the week. The Chazon Ish as well. Apparently it was the minhag of the Chazon Ish. I mentioned Rabbi Yashiv because I saw that myself, or I think that's what I was seeing. I had the opportunity for a couple of weeks once to daven at the same minyan, just one time in my life for a couple of weeks during the summer, and Rabbi Yashiv used to come in. It was a 6:30 minyan. This is in Beit Fagan, in the basic Knesset Zichron, corner of Rehov Pisgah, and he used to come in. It was an earlier minyan, but Rabbi Yashiv used to come for the 6:30 minyan, and he used to come into the shul, and he would take out a chumash, and he would put on his talents and tefillin and take out a chumash and learn. And I'm pretty sure he was learning, or I don't know if somebody told me, or I just assumed that he was doing the Shnayim Mikrah Targum. Then, in any case, his brother Chazon Ish used to do it as well. But we'll talk about soon the latest time. Hashem, and I want to tell you something interesting from the Chazon Ish. So that's the earliest time. Everyone agrees at least Sunday, but the Mishnah holds not just Sunday literally, but you can even start Shabbos by mincha time. What's the latest time? So there are different levels. It's brought mitzvah min hamufchar. Lashon Shulchan Aruch Sivdal. Mitzvah min hamufchar. You should do it before you eat on Shabbos, which the Mefarshim say that means before the Su'uda, not before necessarily, before you make Kiddush and have Achilas Arai, but before the Su'uda Shabbos. Because once you get into the Su'uda Shabbos and everything, we're afraid that if you haven't finished, you haven't done it by then, you may get involved in the Su'uda and the day may slip away from you and you may not get it done. So mitzvah min hamufchar is to do it. This is Rabbi used to encourage the Gemara says to encourage his children, make sure to finish before the Su'uda.
Is that the Su'uda by day or the Su'uda by night?
By day. The Su'uda by day. However, al pi din, you have until Zman Mincha. Now, what's called Zman Mincha? So it's a big shayla. It doesn't say exactly. Some learn it means Mincha Gedola, across the board. Not talking, it doesn't make it when you daven Mincha. Mincha Gedola. What does Mincha Gedola mean? 6.5 hours in the day. We know there's Mincha 6.5 hours a day, and as opposed to Mincha Ketana, which is 9.5 hours. Basically, 6.5 hours a day means a half hour after Chatzos. A half hour, halachic hour after Chatzos. So some say it means till there. A number of poskim say that, and others say it means until you daven. Until you daven mincha. It's brought in Halicha Shlomo that you have until you daven mincha. So if you daven mincha later, it's okay. You could still finish the parsha, the previous week's parsha, until then.
Why is it telling you until? I don't understand. The Gemara says it's a bunch of yakim being offered. It's telling you tzibur, no?
Not necessarily, because when you're at mincha, you hear the explaining. So then it's not completely telling you. If you don't go to shul in the afternoon, you miss mincha. You don't have, doesn't mean you can't start until whenever, right? But when you're already present at the next laning, that already according to that's what somebody. It's not mufresh. Now it's not mufresh though. It's in the Mishnah Berurah l'chara. It's mashma that it's not tali mincha gedola, and I think the Sefer Birur Halacha from Michel from Zilber brings this raya. Because the Mishnah Berurah says that even though it says you should do it preferably before you eat, but he says, but don't miss chatzos. Don't miss eating by you're supposed to eat the suda, or supposed to at least something by chatzos. Don't miss chatzos, even if you haven't done it. Well, if you haven't done it yet, and you're at chatzos, you're gonna sit down and eat and not do it, you're probably not gonna make it by mincha gedola, because you only have a half hour then to do it, and you're probably not finishing your meal and the parsha within the half hour. So that's mash for from the Mishnah Berurah. It's not telling Michel Gedola, but whatever it is, machlokes poskim, if it means Michel Gedola, or it means when you daven. But if you didn't do it then, a number of poskim say it's still kedai to do it in the rest of the day. Still try to get it done on Shabbos. It's before Sunday starts, which is really definitely the next parsha already. If you haven't done it by then, you have until the end of Tuesday. Why Tuesday? Because we know the first 3 days in the week, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, are Misiaches, they're connected to the previous Shabbos. So you're still b'di'evid. It's a b'di'evid. But if you haven't done it by Mincha or by the end of Shabbos, you have until Tuesday. If you haven't done it by then, so then the last stage of the is by Simchas Torah. At least by the following Simchas Torah, be mashlim all the parsha. If you didn't do it then you really missed it. But you should not rely. It's not like okay, no, it's if I get to Simchas Torah, it's really not clear at all that's okay. And that's if you haven't done it by Shlishi b'Shabbos, you should do it then. But again, the best thing is to do it by Mincha, and if not, then at least or the rest of the day. If not, at least by Shlishi b'Shabbos, as we said. Okay. Now, what happens on a Shabbos when? So I want to mention the Chazon Ish that the Chazon Ish, although he broke it up during the week, but it says that he would davka leave a portion to do after laning, specifically after laning, because he held. So he says, brought down that im hatzibur, to be mamish im hatzibur, it means not to be finished before the tzibur lanes. That's how we understood it. Im hatzibur means when the tzibur is laned already. So he will leave a section at the end to do it afterwards. That's what the Chazon Ish it's brought down. Now, what about when there's no parsha on that Shabbos? What do I mean no parsha? It's Yom Tif or Chol Hamoed, and they're not laning regular parsha. Now, we don't do the parshas of Yom Tov and Chol Hamoed separately. We'll do them when we get up to Emor. We do Emor. We get up to whatever it is. Bo. This week, Parshas Bo, right? We're going to lay it again Bez Shem on Pesach. But we do it now on Parshas Bo. We don't do it on Pesach again. So what happens though? A week. Now let's say it's the Shabbos before Pesach, and they started probably Shmini, right? The Mincha is usually Shmini, depending on Ibriya, not Ibriya. But let's say Shmini. They lay the morning they lay Sav, and in the afternoon at Mincha they lay Shmini. But next Shabbos is not laning Shmini. Next Shabbos is going to be Yom Tov or Chol Hamoed. So could you say, okay, but they started laning Shmini. So no, many poskim say, no, you cannot start. You can't do it that week. That week is vacation week. From Shnayim Mikrah Targum. Got plenty else to do for Pesach and Sukkot or whatever. But from Shnayim Mikrah Targum, it's vacation. Because there is no parasha that week. You have to wait until after, at least until Mincha, Zman Mincha, of the following Shabbos. The Shabbos which precedes a Shabbos and when they're really going to lay in the parsha. That's what many say. I did see brought down in the name of the Shevet HaLevi and the Chut Shani that they say differently, that you could stop before, but I saw from many Gedolim not like that. From Rabbi Yashiv, I'll say something in his name in another minute. I heard over that, I'll say it, Shem Omer, I didn't confirm it now, but Rabbi Yisrael Langer told me B'Shem Rav Shmuel first. Shlita there, Moshe Zatzal held that way, that you shouldn't do it the week before. That's what I have at least written down in my notes. And Rabbi Yashiv, if you look in the Sefer Ha'aris, it's in a couple of places, but if you look at Sefer Ha'aris and Maseches Brachas and Daf Ches, Rabbi Yashiv says there, the way I understand what it says there is you should not do it the week before. And even if you did it, and it as long as it's still before Shabbos Shmini, right? You have 2 weeks till Shmini, right? Today is Parshas Tzav, and it's another 2 weeks until Shmini, because in 1 week will be Pesach, and the next week will be Shmini. So if you did it anytime anytime in that first week, do it over again in the next week. If you've already passed Shmini, then you don't have to do it over. Even though it's past Shmini, you can still theoretically do it. It's still not Tuesday. You chapped on Sunday that you did it too early, but you don't have to do it. Once it passed Shabbos Shmini, you have to do it again. But if you did it before, if it's still within the week of Shmini, you should actually do it again. So it's not probably now. I just want to make a shtickle raya. It always seemed to me a shtickle raya to that mahalach, which, as I said, most of the poskim I saw say this way, that you should not do it the week before. A shtickle raya from the Mishnah Berurah, who doesn't talk about this directly, as far as I can tell, but as he talks about when should you lein v'zos habracha. Shnayim Mikrah Targum. When should you lein v'zos habracha? You don't lein it on Shabbos altogether. You lein it on Simchas Torah, which is never Shabbos, unless you're fortunate to live in Eretz Yisrael, where Shmini Atzeres could be Shabbos, and it's also Simchas Torah. But here, it's Simchas Torah is never on a Shabbos. So when do you lein v'zos habracha? So the Mishnah Berurah says, one place he says Hoshana Rabbah, one place he says Shmini Atzeres. But that's it. Not earlier. So what do you mean? They've been laying v'zos, but sometimes you lay v'zos bracha many, many times, right? From the end of from the last Shabbos Hazinu until you get to the Simchas Torah, it could be quite a while. It could be quite a few lanings. And but no, it's apparently you can't do v'zos bracha just because they start in shul. You can't do it. You have to wait for Shana Rabbah and start. So it's mashma that you have to wait. So there maybe you can't even do it the Shabbos before, because it's not a Shabbos to get in. It's not laying on Shabbos. It's Tali and Yontif. So you have to wait till Simchas Torah, Shana Rabbah. But here, okay, you could start within that week. Once you're within the week of Shemini, you could do it, but not the week before. Okay, moving on. Another question of timing. What about at night? Could you do Shnayim Mikrah Targum at night? So you say, well, why not? Well, there's an Inyan brought down of not learning Mikrah, not learning Torah Shebeksav at night. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was taught Torah Shebeksav during the day and Torah Shebal Peh at night during the 40 days on Har Sinai. So the Shari Tshuva over here brings down, from the Machzis Bracha, that's the Chidah, that he says you shouldn't do it at night. He says you shouldn't do it Ba'ashmores Yom Shishi, because Kasu Gurei Ha'ari She'en Likras Targum Balayla. He says She'en Likras Targum Balayla. That's what he says. Mishmur does not bring that down, but in Siman Reish Lamed Ches in Hilchos Ma'ariv, the Sharatzian brings from the Ber Heitev not to learn Mikrah at night, and then he brings the Pri Megadas mashma that it is okay. So the Sharatzian says that Nira de Afla HaMachmirim Ein Bazeh Isura. It's not usher to learn Mikrah at night. Ela Lechatchila Yoser Tov Lilmod Mikrah B'yom. It's preferable to do Mikrah during the day, and that's the way we basically name on. That it's preferable to do Mikrah during the day. If you can, try to arrange your schedule that way. Learn Torah Shebal Peh at night and Torah Shebeksav, including Shnayim Mikrah Targum during the day, with the exception of Friday night. Friday night it's fine, and some say even Thursday night. That's already okay. The Ben Ish Chai in the Shana Aleph Parashat Pekudei Zayin says that Leil Shabbos and Yontiv it's okay, and then he writes also Thursday night you could read Chaf Vav Psukim. Not sure what that means. Ask the people who know what those things mean. But in any case, so as I say, it's a preference to do it during the day. That's how we name on like the Sharatzian. It's a preference to do it during the day, but not an isser to do it at night. Okay, now, how do you fulfill the mitzvah? How do you fulfill the mitzvah of Shnayim Mikrah Targum? Okay, now, for sure, you can't do the Targum first. The Mikrah has to come before the Targum. According to the Mishnah, that means both Mikrahs. Twice Mikrah, then once Targum. B'di'eved, Mishnah brings the Levush. The Levush says you could do Targum in between, Mikrah, Targum, Mikrah, but the Mishnah says from the Madana Yantif that even the Levush only means it's B'di'eved, not Lechatchila. Lechatchila should be Mikrah, Targum. Let me, in order not to be confusing, let me first discuss this point. There are two styles how to do it. Some will do every pasuk, Shnayim Mikrah Targum, pasuk by pasuk, Shnayim Mikrah Targum, pasuk aleph, pasuk beis, Shnayim Mikrah Targum, pasuk gimel. So that would be Lechatchila, according to the Mishnah, twice the Mikrah. Vayam Shal Moshe Bo Al Paro, Vayam Shal Moshe Bo Al Paro, and then the Targum, and pasuk beis, Mikrah Targum, pasuk gimel. The other way of doing it is to take like a parsha at a time, meaning like a section, till a pei or a samach, or if you're breaking it up by the aliyahs, like we mentioned before, many say is okay. So do the aliyah Mikrah, do it again Mikrah, and then do a Targum. Some even do the entire parsha. If they sit down and do the entire parsha in one sitting, they'll do the entire parsha. So you could do it either way, as I said, either pasuk by pasuk or section by section, Mikrah Targum. Okay, but within that, the Mikrah has to precede the Targum. According to the Mishnah Berurah, Lechatchila, both times Mikrah precede the Targum. Now others disagree with the Madana Yantif. The Aruch HaShulchan mentions, and also was besides the Aruch HaShulchan. Let me just look. I know it was one of the other Achronim. Oh, the Mekar Chaim from the Chavas Yar. Both understand the Levush as meaning that Lechatchila you could do it that way. Mikrah Targum Mikrah. Mikrah Targum Mikrah. And in fact, it's brought that the Chazon Ish did that. The Chazon Ish did the Targum in between the two Mikrahs. Mikrah Targum Mikrah, Mikrah Targum Mikrah. Why? Because he said the idea of the Targum is so that you should know what you're learning. So it makes sense. So say it once, then translate it, get the interpretation. Now that you've got the translation, now go back and do it again the second time. Chazon Ish held that that's the preferred way of doing it. In any case, I just want to point out, if you go with the Mishnah Berurah, indicates no, that's definitely not the preferred way. It's Yotzi B'di'eved, but the preferred way is Mikrah Targum. So lefi that, some people like to be Yotzi one-time Mikrah during Kriyas HaTorah, meaning not just by listening, but by landing along with the Balkari, and that'll be one-time Mikrah. But if you're going to follow the Mishnah Berurah, that you're going to do Mikrah Targum, so you're going to have to wait then with the Targum. If you're first going to be Yotze your second Mikrah Shabbos morning during laning, so now you're a little bit behind the game. You're going to have to make sure to do the entire Targum before Zman, preferably before the Suda, or at least before Zman Mincha. So just something to bear in mind. If you're going to follow the Mishnah Berurah, and you want to be Yotze the Mikrah with the Baal Torah, then you don't, you have to make sure you can have time for Targum.
If you want to be Yotze, this is you're saying it out loud, or you're saying?
Well, you're articulating it, not loud enough to disturb the guy next to you, but like when you daven. Like when you daven loud enough to hear yourself, but hopefully nobody else is disturbed. So that that type of level. Yes.
I understand that in the early days in Bubble, the language of Bubble was Aramis, and so therefore that's why they, after saying the Mikrah twice, they were translated into Aramis. However, the majority of the Jewish population no longer lives in a Aramis bubble.
Right.
They live in places like America, Eretz Israel. Well, Eretz Israel is not Shiloh, but Brooklyn, Lakewood, Muncie, all these places. So, can it be substituted to say a Mikrah and a translation, Targum, I think means a translation. Can you say the Targum in English?
Okay, Bez Shem, I'm going to address that. Okay, I think I'll make it tonight. We have time to address that. I'll address that shortly. Okay, I just want to try to go a little bit in order of what I have, and then I'll address that.
Is there a specific reason why it has to be in that order? I didn't catch that.
Is there a specific reason? Because I think that because Mikrah comes before, the Mikrah is more Iker than the Targum. The Mikrah is that's the Mamish, the Dvar Hashem, the way he said it directly. Then
you said because you said it before. You person with Lane, then the person with Balkar, and the person Lane, then Turguman. So we said
they only landed one time. What do you mean? They only did the Mikrah once when they actually landed.
The Turguman. So you see, it wasn't an activity done with in the Zichron. So if you're assuming the way we were saying it, that it didn't work, it had nothing to do with the way it was laid in shul. It was just Shnayim Mikrah, that's a target. That's the way they did, right?
Okay, they did the Mikrah once, right? When they laid in shul.
Right, I'm saying that you see that.
Right. Okay, so I think the idea is, with the reason why we do two Mikrah, one, if it's connected the two people, or it's connected, with the Rosh Hashanah said, the Arvis Moav, and the, Sinai, Olmod, Arvis Moav, that's how they got to three. But I think the idea is very pashut that if you don't go with the Chazon Ish's approach that the Targum should be in the middle so that so that you got it straight now say it over again. If you don't go with that, then the idea is Mikrah simply comes before. I think it's mistabed that it should be that way. Okay, so now but so she's saying that in terms of being Yosef with Balkar, you have to keep that in mind. In any case, for sure, you should not do Targum before any Mikrah. And if you do it that way, they bring from Chaim Kanievsky that they bring the Kses HaShulchan is Mesupik if you Yotzi B'di'evet even, and they bring the Dirsha Mishberg comes from Chaim Kanievsky. It says it's Kedai to do it over again if you did that. It's Kedai to do over again the Targum after you do the Mikrah. Okay, now before I address what was just brought up in terms of the what constitutes Targum, just one more point before that is that what happens if you miss the parsha? For one reason you weren't able to do it, and you missed the parsha or a part of the parsha. So there are tshuvas that discuss this, the tshuvas Marsham and others discuss it. But I think what's pashut is you definitely shouldn't fall behind further. Meaning, in other words, I had this experience myself many years ago. I say it was close to 30 years ago. Shortly after I moved to Chicago, and again I'll give credit was due. I was sitting in the base medrash in the lake with Kollel there, and it was I think it was either Lech Lecha or Vayera. I think it was Lech Lecha, whatever it was. I was doing the parsha before Shabbos. I missed the parsha before, and it was Shabbos morning, and I was doing, let's say it was Lech Lecha, I was doing Noach, or maybe it was Vayera, I was doing Lech Lecha, because I thought that it's better to do it in order based on the sources that discuss it. Better to do it in order. So someone came in. His name is Rav Hillel Zaks, not the Chavetz Chaim's grandson, but the Chavetz Chaim's grandson's grandson, great grandson of Chavetz Chaim. His name is, I think it was Rosh Kollel in Eretz Yisrael, and he was in Chicago at the time. And he saw me doing the previous week's parsha, and he said something like, "Did you finish this week's parsha already?" And I said, "No." I didn't do it yet. I'm making up last week. So he basically told me that doesn't make any sense. So now you can do last week's parsha and not get to this week's parsha, and then you'll be behind next week, and you just constantly be behind. Then you'll never do it in Mitzvah. Every week you're doing the previous week's parsha. Then you're never fulfilling the mitzvah. And I believe that is correct. That is correct. That if you're not going to catch up now, if you can do 2 parashios now or within this week, then of course you should. And then there's an idea perhaps to do. It's brought in to do it in order. Better do it in order if you're going to catch up. But if you're not going to catch up, if it's like I was sitting Shabbos morning, it wasn't that long before davening, still doing the previous week's parsha. I hadn't even started that week's parsha. When in the world was I going to get that week's parsha done? Probably not in time at all. He was right. So I think that's the. So then, for sure, if you miss the parsha, and don't let that throw you off for the next 6 months until Simchas Torah or whatever it is. But rather, do already this week's parsha and then try to make up the previous one. If it's past Wednesday, it's past Tuesday, there's not so much of an advantage making up by Simchas Torah, other than you want to make sure it happens. But if you can make up both, like you said, if you can make up both, if you just you didn't get to it that week, but it's unusual. You usually do it, and you're going to sit down Sunday afternoon. You're going to sit down with a chumash, and you're going to do last week's parsha. Then fine, do last week's parsha before you do this week's parsha. That would be the right thing to do. Okay. Targum. Okay, what's Targum? So I just want to say that Targum is not only because they lived in Babel. That might be part of it, but it's like I mentioned at the beginning. The Targum was given in Har Sinai even before they got to Babel. Right? The Targum was given in Har Sinai. And it's from the Rebbe Shalom, and it's like we said, it's carved the Lashon HaKodesh. It has many things in there which explain Psukim, other than just translate the Psukim. So it's very chashiv and very important and very critical very beneficial to do specifically the Targum. Now, the Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Reish Pei Hey, Seif. Base. Im lamed a parsha v'perish Rashi. If you learn with Rashi, chashiv kamo Targum. That considered like Targum. Says the Mishnah Berurah, then you'd be yotzi with that. Oh, what about psukim that don't have Rashi on it? Yikra osin shalosh pa'amim. Continues the Mechaber, v'yirei shamayim yikra Targum v'gam perish Rashi. Best thing is do both. Do Targum and Rashi. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, because the Targum has the Milah that was given with Sinai, and it explains every word, and Rashi has the Milah that explains the Inyan more thoroughly, and Alpi Midrash Chazal Yosemir Targum. Okay, now, so that would be the best thing to do. Now, what happens? So let's address what happens if a person does not understand the Targum. Right? Let's say you read you don't know what the words mean. Unfortunately, you don't know what the words mean, or you don't know what a lot of the words mean. So are you Yotzei? Is there a shaila if maybe you're not even Yotzei if you don't understand the Targum? Is there such a shaila? Well, there is such a shaila. How do we know such a shaila? Because it says in some Makaros that you're not. Just see, where is the 1 second here, please. All right. There's a letter from the Chavetz Chaim. It's brought in the Sefer Birur Halacha, Madura Kama Amud Nun Ches, brings a letter from the Chavetz Chaim that it says, Ein anu yotzi mideicha v'seinu b'targum. We are not yotzi with unkelos b'targum. L'fi she'ein hamoni achenu b'nei Yisrael mevinim oso. Perish Rashi hu etzleinu midina b'mokam atargum shemelifnim. The Chavetz Chaim in a brief, in a letter, so the Chavetz Chaim says that Perish Rashi is instead of what Targum was. And I heard also, I have written down in my notes that from Kollel in Chicago, his Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky Zatzal, that one who does not understand the Targum is not Yotze with Targum. On the other hand, the Halicha Shlomo, in the first Chelik on Tefillah, Perek Days, Tvar Halach Mem Ches, says one is Yotze Targum even if he, and that's the Ikra Takana, and you're Yotze even if you don't understand it so thoroughly. Or even if you know Alburio, even if you know Kalkach, even if you don't understand it so well. Shlomo Zalman is quoted saying that you are Yotzei. That was the Ikar Targum was still Targum. Lamaisa, I personally think it's very beneficial to do Targum. And if even if you don't really understand it, first of all, most of us do understand a good deal of it because Baruch Hashem we learn Gemara, and we have exposure to Gemara, and a lot of the words are there. And sure, there are things we don't understand, but there's a good deal we do. And by doing it more, we can understand more. Now there are even Svarim on Targum, besides Svarim and Lashon HaKodesh that explain the depth of the Targum. There are Svarim that translate the Targum into English. You could get a Onkelos translated so that you can pick up the meanings and the subtleties and the Perushim that Onkelos is saying. So that would be great. If you don't know Targum, get a Targum on the Targum, and this way you could be Yotzei that. Now I would also venture to say, and in discussion that I had with those years ago, he agreed with this many years ago, that if a person doesn't really understand Rashi, or he has difficulty with Lashon HaKodesh, so if he does Rashi in an English in a good translation of Rashi, and there are a number of those out there now, good translations of Rashi, so then that would be fine, because by Onkelos it's the words we're given in Sinai. But Rashi Avada, the words of Rashi are Zeir Helig, very 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 kadosh. I don't mean to indicate otherwise, but I think the main point of Rashi is getting what he says rather than how he says it. If you have to pick one or the other, it's more getting the idea. What is Rashi saying? And so if you do a parish on Rashi, or do a translation of Rashi, then that would be very worthwhile. Now, okay, so the best thing would be to do Onkelos, and do Onkelos with the translation if you need to, and if you can, Yirei Shamayim, avad to do Rashi as well, and do Rashi is the best translator. What about something entirely different? Could you take an English translation, right? Just an English translation, contemporary or not so contemporary, maybe one that was written perhaps by one of the Chachamim of one of the previous recent Doros, who translated, whether it's into English or whether it's into another foreign language, which you may understand, or maybe translated now into English. So it's brought that if there's a parish which is Al Pi Chazal and incorporates the words of Chazal, it incorporates how Chazal explained the Psukim, then you could be Yotzei. You could be Yotzei even without Onkelos or Rashi if you take a translation which translates it properly Al Pi Chazal. And there are a number of them. I don't want to give specifics now, but there are a number of them out there that in English, and I would imagine other languages as well, which translate the Psukim properly Al Pi Chazal. And if you need to, you could be Yotzei with that. So again, doing Onkelos has a mila which you can't replace with anything else. Doing Rashi is phenomenal if you can, but there is the idea of being Yotzei with other translations if necessary. I believe that's the bulk of what I wanted to say. I'll mention one more thing, then if someone has any questions. One more halacha, nobody should have to know from it, but it is brought that, let's say, if a person is sitting Shiva, we know that during Shiva, one of the Yisurim in Shiva is Talmud Torah. A person is not allowed to learn during Shiva other than Hilchas Avelus, halachas and similar things that but Shnayim Mikrah Targum he's allowed to do on Shabbos, at least, and I see some bring down, even if he normally breaks it up, he can do it, he can break it up, but, I retract that, I did not see what I saw, was a shaila whether if he normally does Rashi, he could even do Rashi, but on Shabbos during Shiva, he could do Shnayim Mikrah Targum, on the Shabbos during Shiva, but it's brought from a number of Achronim, that, let's say the Shiva ends on Shabbos, if the Shiva began on a Sunday, so that the last day is Shabbos, and he gets up for Shabbos, so then he shouldn't do it Friday night, while he's still in Dinei Shiva. He should wait Davka to the morning after Shachris when he gets up from Shiva, and then he no longer has the restrictions of Shiva. Then he can learn anything, and he wait to do it then. But if the Shiva is not ending on Shabbos, if the Shiva is going beyond, then he could do it afterwards. Which just reminds me, I always had a shaila, which I don't think I ever asked anyone, on Tisha B'Av. There's a discussion whether you could do it on Tisha B'Av, whether you can be close to the parsha. If on Tisha B'Av, it's not so pasha that you can, but let's say Tisha B'Av is a Sunday, or better yet, let's say Tisha B'Av is a Tuesday, and you're behind last week's parsha. Tisha B'Av is sometimes Tuesday, right? Or in the days when we used to have Tisha B'Av, Amala was on a Tuesday. So let's say a person didn't finish last week's parsha, and now it's Tuesday. If he doesn't do it, that's it. He's not Yotzi. It's Simchas Torah, but that's really the difference. I always wondered if you could do it just like the Oval, the sing Shiva, could do it on Shabbos because the mitzvah is to do it then. So I wonder if the person on Tisha B'Av who didn't make it up, could he make it up on Tuesday? So we'll leave you with that shaila. Okay. Good night. Thank you all for coming.
What did Rabbi say? Which